sure you follow through the news what is going on, and it's usually not very positive, because what the news have to put in is what the masses would be interested in, and it usually doesn't make a good headline to say to talk about a development project. Whereas other things which they usually cover make it extremely sensational and attract more viewers. But a country moves forward. We do, and we have over the past 15 years achieved a lot. Things that the American people may take for granted, but for Afghans, it's a huge achievement. Things like having institutions in place, for example, government institutions that serve its people. Things like healthcare, for example. We were in just 15 years ago, even to treat malaria, we had to travel to neighboring countries, whereas today there are hospitals that are treating cancer, separating conjoined twins, and do kidney operations. So those would have not been possible had it not been for the support of the international community over the past 15 years. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank them, and to thank all those who served in Afghanistan into making us achieve that. I think we owe it to those who made the ultimate sacrifice in Afghanistan, both Afghans and Americans, to make sure that we build on the progress we have made in the past 15 years. I will talk a little bit about what is happening today, and then based on the discussions I had with Greg, I'm guessing that those will be the areas of interest, but I'm happy to take any questions you might have, anything that you might be interested in, and talk more deeply about that. But to come to the main question of where Afghanistan is headed. We're in our country going through what we call the transformation decade. We're working on Afghanistan becoming self-reliant in the next, well, now 9 years, not 10. And we're making steady progress in achieving that goal. Our country had never seen a democratic transition. This is the first time we have ever had one president hand over power to another, and how to do that peacefully. But it was not just the democratic transition that happened around the same time. We also had a military transition where the international security forces left Afghanistan, and the Afghan security forces, who were only started about 10 years ago, took power and started defending our nation on our own. It was a huge milestone for us, but I want to talk about what it meant, what a transition means for any democracy. In Afghanistan, we have always had our loyalties, and this is the way the systems were built, to the person at the top, the president, the king, whoever was leading the country at that particular juncture. And when that person leaves, the next government that is formed also will usually come through a revolution, would also then be all loyal to the next person. What we're working on is that shifting that transition and shifting that those loyalties from a person to an institution, which is the presidency. And as part of that, over the past 18 months, we did stumble a little, because most of our institutions didn't know how to adjust themselves into shifting their loyalties from a person to an institution. But we've made that step, and we're making steady progress as we go now. I am glad to report that we're in a much better shape, both in terms of governance and also in terms of security. Our security forces were tested last year. Everybody that was watching Afghanistan was betting on Afghanistan's failure, but we came out successfully, even though the enemy tried to take territory from the Afghan security forces, who were for the first time fighting on their own and didn't have all the resources available to them as the previous, with the international community there. That meant no close air support. We also meant no medevac facilities, and no ISR, so we didn't have any battlefield advantage. It was line of sight. If we could see the enemy, they could see us, and we were at a disadvantage because we were in uniform and they were not. So we had to be careful about how to engage them. But this year, the number of attacks have increased, and the enemy had put more effort into trying to reach their strategic objective, and that is by taking land in. And they've not been able to succeed despite the increase. And that is a testament to how far the Afghan security forces have come. It's a new army, and something I would like to quote from General Campbell, who was the head of the Resolute Support, the mission that takes care of the security forces and the international engagement in Afghanistan. When he left, he said, most people forget that the Afghan army is only 10 years old. But they're expected to perform as much more mature armies, and that's a testament to how well they have managed to establish themselves and how far they have come. And we're confident that we're securing the future of Afghanistan and making sure that we defend our territory from extremism. But we're not just a country that's fighting on our behalf. There is a proxy war going, and we're fighting on behalf of the region and on behalf of the world to make sure that Afghanistan never becomes a safe haven for any extremist again. We're on the economy front, we're doing, again, despite all that's going on the security side, we're paying a lot of attention to our economy. International investment, as we have spoken to, those who invested in Afghanistan didn't leave because they were worried about security. Thank God the government and the security forces have been able to keep businesses safe. What they're concerned about, and they always left, was because we didn't have the legal infrastructure to protect their investments. And Afghanistan, as I speak now, is working on putting that legal infrastructure in place. I hear there might be some technology companies and others who would be wondering about what kind of opportunities would be available in Afghanistan. We're just opening up our communications and infrastructure, so soon we'll have an open access policy go through our cabinet and approved. Most of the legal work is already done, which means private industries can start investing in putting telecommunications infrastructure, which also means we're also putting laws like privacy laws and others in place, so that if a company wants to set up a data center in Afghanistan, they would not only have the infrastructure, the location, but also be protected and make sure that the data is right, so they can be confident that we will be providing a safe place for their business. We're also attracting other industries, companies like, for example, Coca-Cola has been doing business in Afghanistan for a long time, almost a decade. And not only are they manufacturing, they're also distributing from Afghanistan. And their competitors, Pepsi, do not want to be left behind. So they have also started working on competing in there. Those are big names. Those are companies that are multinational and are working on their game. But there are other companies who are also working. Afghan investors who are coming back and looking at investing in Afghanistan in many different ways. We're also starting to open up legal framework to begin public-private partnerships. So this year alone, we're opening up bids for 42 small hydroelectric dams, and they will be built by the private sector, but as the government guaranteeing to buy their electricity and put it on the grid. We're also working on this year producing more electricity than we produced in the last 70 years alone. Again, that was made possible by laws, by the energy law that we currently pass, and also the renewable energy law. So most of that electricity that we're producing will be renewable energy, 50% of it coming from solar power. Anyway, I promised that I would only talk about those two areas and then take questions, so that I'm answering and talking about things that are on your mind rather than